Melbourne Park, the home since 1988 of the Australian Open, one of the 4 Grand Slam championships of tennis. The move from the Open's old home at Kooyong was made to maintain its status as one of the 4 majors. The construction of the tennis centre cost some $86 million. The players believe it was money well spent.
Well, it set the standard, I think, in making the slams better and bigger. You know, it built the court with the roof on the stadium court, and the grounds, everything was planned and set out, and I think it set the standard for Wimbledon and for Roland Garros and US Open to have to follow.
The Australian Open obviously holds a lot of really good memories, and it's a tournament I'd love to do very well in. It's a fantastic facility, I think.
It gives me very great pleasure to declare the National Tennis Centre officially open.
The 11th of January 1988 was opening night. The Australian Open had a new home. Mats Wilander, the champion at Kooyong in 1983 and 84, made it through to the first final. His opponent, Pat Cash, Australian hero and Wimbledon champion.
That's a fantastic shot. And here's a major chance for Cash. 2 sets all, 2-1 Wilander. Break point for Pat Cash.
A vital break back by Cash. A short time later, it was Wilander serving 4-5 and 40-30.
And that hurts after all the hard work. A rare error. Such an important volley. So this to level up at 5 each. And still Cash won't let him off the hook. Tremendous accuracy. Wilander drawing on all his experience here. 4 Grand Slams even at the age of 23.
The Swede's determination at the net enabled him to hold serve. We rejoin the action. It's 6-all and deuce.
The lobs weren't good enough. Extraordinary elasticity from Wilander. Break point. He's got it.
The break of serve was all Wilander required. Shortly after, he had match point.
Vilander is the champion again. Champion in 83, 84, and now once again in 1988.
Chris Evert, another 2 times former champion, found herself up against the precocious German teenager Steffi Graf in the 1988 women's final. The match, played with the centre court roof shut because of bad weather, featured a series of gruelling baseline rallies. Surprisingly, it was the patience of Evert that ran out. Graf reached championship point in a second set tiebreak.
Game, set, and match draw.
Steffi's coach, Pavel Slozil, claimed her first step toward a golden Grand Slam of the 4 major titles and an Olympic gold medal. At 18, Steffi had become the best in the world. Mark Woodford featured in an outstanding first-round match in the 1989 Open against Frenchman Yannick Noah. Woodford's outstanding service returns, which had brought him so much double success, were a constant source of points for the Australians.
Thank you.
Over 5 fabulous sets, the 2 men stood toe-to-toe. Woodford was discovering that against the 1983 French Open champion, few points are won easily. Crowd loved every moment and were thrilled as Woodford reached match point. It had been just the sort of match that every tournament needs to stir the emotions and create lasting memories. Another that year was a semi-final featuring 2 of the Iron Men of tennis, Austria's Thomas Muster and the Czech-born American Ivan Lendl.
2 sets to 1 Lendl, 5 games all, 15-30. These 2 he-men of the tennis court still slugging it out in this intense heat.
30 all.
And Lendl making the mistakes now.
40-30.
Few minutes time.
Deuce.
Just took his eye off it. Lendl can't believe it. Another mistake from Muster, and he's really only got himself to blame.
Advantage Lendl.
Break point Lendl for 6-5. He'll be serving for the match.
Game Lendl.
Muster's failure to press home his advantage was to cost him dearly. Lendl then served for the match.
A titanic struggle. Muster to have his chances, but it's Lendl who goes through to the final.
Ivan went on to beat Miroslav Macic in straight sets in the final to claim his first Australian Open title. Steffi Graf had few problems in defending her women's crown and claiming a 5th successive major. She dropped just 8 games in the final against the Czech Helena Suková. Steffi's domination in the women's game seemed total. Wally Mercer brought the 1990 Open to life as he tackled 3-times champion Mats Wilander in the 3rd round.
It's in. And it's deuce. 2 sets all. 3-4. Well, that's superb play from Wilander. Judging his advance to perfection. And here's break point. He's got it. And now he'll serve for the match.
The crucial break of serve put the Swede in pole position.
So match point for the 3-time champion.
Thank you. Quiet, please.
Lucky at the end, the Wilander magic has worked again in Melbourne. Terrific effort from Wally Mercer. But it's Wilander who goes through.
Another Swede, Mikael Pernfors, was expected to be a sacrificial lamb against the mercurial skills of John McEnroe in round 4. On this day, though, John chose to display his temper rather than his talent. After some early tantrums, McEnroe really fell out with the British umpire Jerry Armstrong when he tried to stare down a line judge whose call went against him.
Got to be careful. This could be called intimidation or unsportsmanlike behaviour.
Code violation, unsportsmanlike conduct. Warning, Mr. McEnroe.
And that won't be the end of it, you can be sure. Jerry Armstrong warning McEnroe. Oh dear. Ouch. Now that could be very costly for McEnroe.
Code violation, racket abuse, point penalty, Mr. McEnroe.
And that will cost McEnroe the game. It's going to be a break. He's had the warning, the point penalty at break point.
Game Pernfors.
And Jerry Armstrong laying down the letter of the law here. McEnroe then 2 sets to 1 up. But now 4-2 down in the 4th set and not happy. And the supervisor is coming on here. Ken Farrar. And McEnroe is going to have a few more words with Farrar and with Jerry Armstrong.
The question is whether or not whether I'm going to continue playing with it. If I can't play with the racket, right? If there's a little crack, does that mean it's abuse? If it's a slight crack. what's the definition of a break? Unable to continue playing with it?
Oh, break it. Broken.
It's not broken. Broken's when you can't play with it. You want to look at it?
You hear McEnroe saying the racket's not broken.
The point with it.
He says he wants to carry on playing the next point with it.
Then that's the situation.
Not going to crack the racket. Let's play.
Well, they've given him the benefit of the doubt. Oh, but McEnroe's given them a piece of his mind, and this could be curtains for McEnroe. He could be out of the tournament.
Code violation, verbal abuse, default, Mr. McEnroe.
Now that is a sensational story. John McEnroe disqualified and bundled out of the Australian Open. And Pernfors can't believe it.
They heard a crack and they said that was enough. That was the rule. They said that it was broken. I mean, is a cracked racket broken? I mean, that's really what it boils down to. Should I have gotten a warning for going up to that lady and just looking at her? To say a little four-letter word, at that point, I was, you know, I didn't know the rule. It's not like everyone heard what I said. It was between me and two people. So I think that it was unnecessary to default me in that situation. But if you say, you know, it's not like it's, that's, if you say a four-letter word, I mean, I think that there should be better discretion.
Sadly, the 1990 men's final also came to an abrupt halt when injury forced Stefan Edberg to retire in the third set against Ivan Lendl.
Game Lendl. Lendl leads 5 games to 2. Ladies and gentlemen, because of injury, Mr. Stefan Edberg must retire. Game, set, match, Lendl.
The women's final saw American Mary Jo Fernandez in her first Grand Slam final trying to stop Steffi Graf's 3-year winning streak at the Open. Fernandez tried to vary her tactics, but Graf always seemed to have the answer. Already a set down, Fernandez now faced break point at 4-all in the second.
Game Graf, she leads 5-4.
Steffi was one game away from another Australian Open title, and her father Peter could relax a little.
Quiet, please, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you. Game, set, match, Graf, 6-3, 6-4.
Steffi had still to be beaten at what was then called Flinders Park. Boris Becker entered the 1991 Australian Open, knowing that if he won it, he could become the world #1. He seemed to be cruising through his third-round match with Omar Camporese when he won the first 2 sets, but the Italian fought back to force a titanic 5th and final set. The decider was full of drama as the match moved past the 5-hour mark. At 12 games all, Camporese had a point to hold serve. Understandably, the Italian was starting to slow. Would this be Becker's chance? Boris was piling on the pressure by chipping and charging, and Camporese could only curse the shortness of his lob. Break point, Becker. The body language of the two men told the story. Baker had achieved a vital breakthrough and, in the next game, reached 2 match points. Becker Becker had won 7-6, 7-6, love 6, 4-6, 14-12 in 311 minutes, the longest match in Australian Open history. 14-12. In the final, Boris faced the champion of the last 2 years, Ivan Lendl. The first set belonged to Ivan, the rest of the match to Becker. Boris was closing in on the victory that would take him to the top of the world rankings, but Lendl wasn't about to capitulate easily. At 4-5 in the fourth set, though, Lendl was facing championship point. The man who had been christened the Boy King at Wimbledon when he'd won there in 1985 now ruled the tennis world for the first time. With an Australian, Bob Brett, as his coach, Becker was treated almost like a hometown winner. The emotion of the occasion overcame him, and he decided to celebrate with a run in the local park. Behind him, some lucky fans admired their souvenir. Monica Seles and Jana Novotná made their first appearances in the women's final, Novotná having beaten Steffi Graf in the quarters.
Wonderful saving volley from Jana. Monica's beginning to pile it on after dropping the first set. Now 5-1 up in the third. 2 points away from victory. Thought it was out and looked out.
Advantage Novotná.
But not given. There's her reply. No prisoners.
Deuce.
So it's championship point for Monica Seles. It's long. And from a set down, Monica Seles has won the Australian Open in convincing style.
Whether in Melbourne or New York, Grand Slam matches played at night under lights always seem to produce classic encounters, like John McEnroe's third-round clash with defending champion Boris Becker in 1992.
Magical shot. And McEnroe able to nullify Becker's power with sheer brilliance like that. Break point. Becker hanging on. 2 sets to love. McEnroe up. 5-all. Deuce. Second break point for the American.
The crucial break for the American put him on course for victory over one of the world's top 3 players. We rejoin the action at 6-5 and 30-all.
McEnroe 2 points from going through. And a stream of joy. Larry Stefanki there, his coach. Match point. A huge win for John McEnroe. And it was convincing too. McEnroe through to round 4.
McEnroe was into the last 16, where his opponent was the experienced Spaniard Emilio Sanchez. This too would become a thriller. We join the match at 2 sets all. McEnroe leads 5-4 and 15-40.
Oh no! Can't believe it. So the first match point is saved in breathtaking style.
Thank you.
A shot that McEnroe would have been delighted with. 30-40. No, it was wide, surely. Not called.
Yes.
Bruno Robert in the chair, going with the ace. Second match point saved. So now Sanchez has this point to make it 5-all in the 5th set. And how on earth has he done it? Still plenty of tennis left in this match.
Game Sanchez, 5-all.
Sanchez had clawed his way back from the brink of defeat. He then broke McEnroe's serve and held 2 match points at 6-5 and 40-15.
5 piece.
Well, it's a pattern with Emilio. When he's behind, he fights like a lion, but once he's in front, he begins to think.
40-30.
There's his first match point and his first double fault. Match point number 2. Ouch. You'd scarcely credit it the way he's played, but he is suffering. Just good enough, the drop shot. Third match point. What a return from McEnroe. Another off the frame. And McEnroe has break point.
Advantage McEnroe.
And this match has had just about everything.
5 piece.
A Houdini act from McEnroe, but Sanchez will wonder how on earth he let that slip.
Leading 7-6, McEnroe had Sanchez in trouble again. Could he wrap up the match this time?
Third match point save. And the important thing was the balance was fine when he played the shot. So both have saved 3 match points. He's stolen so quickly, McEnroe. Match point number 4 for the American. The amazing McEnroe saga in Australia continues.
After being on court for 4 hours, 41 minutes, McEnroe was so drained that he asked to be given a saline glucose drip. Unfortunately, he didn't recover in time for his next match and lost in straight sets to South African Wayne Ferreira. Meanwhile, the Woodies, Todd Woodbridge and Mark Woodford, reached their first Australian Open doubles final. Their opponents, the Americans Kelly Jones and Rick Leach.
Playing against a couple of guys who weren't from Australia, you know, we were on top of the world. It was our one of our first big finals together. It was, I think, such a huge relief to win that first set, and that just sort of started the ball rolling for us, and we were able to, you know, to win in straight set. It was a fabulous feeling to you know, ultimately win that first slam together, and it was just even better that it was at Melbourne Park.
The partners found themselves in opposition in the mixed doubles final. Todd playing with Arantxa Sanchez Vicario against Mark and Nicole Provis. The All-Australian combination had luck on their side as they closed out an incredible match, 11-9 in the final set. The absence of Steffi Graf through illness meant a weakened field for the women's event. However, the best match was the quarter-final between Gabriella Sabatini and Jennifer Capriati.
Game 7 match, Sabatini. 6-4, 7-6.
American Jim Courier captured his first Australian Open men's singles title with a 4-sets win over the 1985 champion Stefan Edberg, while Monica Seles retained the women's crown, beating Mary Jo Fernandez 6-2, 6-3 in the final. '93 saw Pete Sampras reach his first semi-final in Melbourne, in which he faced Stefan Edberg, who was bidding to reach a third final in 4 years. The standard instruction against the Swede was to attack his forehand. It didn't always work. The problem was that his backhand was so good that it gave him chances to make winners off his weaker wing. Trailing by 2 sets to love, Sampras could ill afford to drop serve. The bleep of the service line machine Cyclops gave Sampras a brief reprieve. The double fault handed Edberg the break, and Stefan closed in on a straight sets win. Stefan's wife Annette and his coach Tony Pickard rose to acclaim a fine victory. Now he would have the chance to turn the tables on Jim Courier. But the American was in no mood to relinquish his title, again winning in 4 sets.
Game, set, match, Courier. 3 sets to 1. 6-2, 6-1, 2-6, 7-5.
Courier was making a habit of winning in Melbourne and of celebrating by jumping into the River Yarra, which runs right outside the stadium. People who know it well say he's lucky to have lived to tell the tale. Fortunately, Jim's made of sturdy stuff and has never succumbed to waterborne diseases. In her first Australian Open, Mary Pierce reached the last 8 and a match with Gabriella Sabatini.
Match point for Pierce. Amazing defence from Sabatini. But one of their early shots looked as if it might have been long at the baseline. Match point saved. 7 points each in this second set tiebreak. Massive play from Mary Pierce. One more, she said. A second match point. It's just out. She thought she'd won it. It couldn't have been closer. Just have a look at this. It's sometimes very difficult to see in slow motion. It looked like it might have been just out, but mighty close. 2 match points saved. Sabatini just a wonderful pick-up volley. And now it's set point for Sabatini to level up at a set each. Fearsome hitting from Pierce.
It continued in this vein until Sabatini scored at 13-12. Without doubt, the turning point of the match. The third set saw Pierce offer nothing in the way of resistance, and Sabatini eventually broke serve for the match.
Well, it was utterly one-sided at the end, and Gabriella Sabatini saves 2 match points to go through.
Steffi Graf came through the other half of the draw to set up a final between the champions of the last 5 years, Monica Seles having beaten Sabatini in the semis. Monica recovered from a set down to maintain her unbeaten record in Melbourne. She had matched Steffi's run of 3 successive titles. In 1994, the two top Americans, Pete Sampras and Jim Courier, met in the semi-finals. In a match of heavy hitting, Sampras always had the edge. Sampras's greater skills at the net were a decisive factor. He took the first 2 sets 6-3, 6-4, and at 5-4 in the third was on the verge of ending Courier's reign as champion. The leadership of American tennis had changed hands. In the final, Sampras took on another of his fellow countrymen, Todd Martin, who'd beaten Edberg in the semis. On the golf course, Martin always beats Sampras. On a tennis court, it's a different story. Sampras won the second as well and never relaxed his grip on the match.
Game, set, match, Sampras.
It was a third successive Grand Slam title for the Wimbledon and US Open champion, who was now established as the best player in the world.
7-6, 6-4, 6-4.
With Monica Seles unable to defend her title following her stabbing the previous year, the two top seeds, Steffi Graf and Arantxa Sanchez Vicario, met in the women's final, which Graf dominated. Steffi was at her brilliant best, hitting with power and precision, displaying all her athleticism. Arantxa was stunned as she lost the first set, 6-love. There was little respite for her in the second. The Spaniard could only smile as another winner thundered past her. At 2-5, her suffering was almost over. Steffi has seldom played better in a major final. No wonder her fans were celebrating in style. It was Australian Open title number 4 for Fraulein Forehand. Patrick Rafter, Australia felt it had a genuine contender for the 1995 men's title. He reached the last 16 by bravely coming from 2-1 down against Marcus Andruska. Now, though, Andre Agassi stood in his way. It was not a happy experience for the Aussie.
It can be a little bit overbearing sometimes, especially when you're losing. It's, come on, Pat. Oh, I'm trying. Just hang with me, I'm trying. When you're winning, it's a fantastic experience, or when it's very close in the fifth set, and you're a little bit down, a little bit tired, and you walk out on the court and the crowd gets you going. It's a really good feeling to walk out with all those people cheering for you.
However, despite occasional glimpses of his undoubted talent, it was to be the Americans' day. Agassi had crushed him. The Rafter's career would take a couple of years to fully recover. In the quarters, Jim Courier faced his old adversary, Pete Sampras, whose coach, Tim Gullickson, had returned home after being diagnosed as suffering from brain cancer. We joined the action in the 5th set, first game.
It's a massive fight back, this, from Sampras. 2 sets down, 2 sets all. Courier looking down. It looks like Sampras is beginning to get some extraneous thoughts, probably about Tim. Fine shot from Courier. Nothing Sampras could have done about that. And again, he turns his back, and you can see this is such an important match for him, and he has achieved so much, and the emotion of it amidst all that's been going on is proving a fearsome hurdle.
Game, Sampras. First game, final set.
Despite the emotional turmoil he was clearly suffering, Sampras, it seemed, was feeding off these emotions and lifted his game to a higher level.
Quiet, please.
The emotion may be nearly over. The reigning champion has match point now against the champion of 92 and 93. A quite extraordinary match, and somehow, and only she perhaps, and he knows, he's come back from 2 sets down to win.
6-4, 6-3.
In the semi-finals, Sampras beat Michael Chang in 4 sets and now faced Andre Agassi in a match it seemed the whole world wanted to see. It's now the 3rd set.
The Sampras with the advantage here. A mini break, he leads 5-4. And he did mighty well to get his body out of the way there and contrive any kind of shot, let alone one that went in. 2 set points for Sampras. Only Agassi could save set point like that. A bad miscue. 2 set points saved. And after saving the 2 set points, Agassi now has one of his own. Yes, too good. And from a set down, Agassi's now 2 sets to 1 up.
The tide had seemingly turned. We rejoined the action in the 4th set, 4-all and 40-30.
He gets wrong, and now Pete Sampras really up against it. striking volley. And this is virtually match point. Agassi will be serving for it. Oh, what a way to get the break.
That break enabled Agassi to serve for the match.
Thank you. Game 7 match.
And this extraordinary man has now added the Australian to the Wimbledon and US Championships.
4-6.
And this, remember,
6-1.
in his first visit to Melbourne.
6-4.
And he's beaten the very best. Brad Gilbert absolutely thrilled. Agassi's renaissance continues, and he couldn't be happier. A fitting triumph.
'95 will also be remembered for the flood. Outside, the rain lashed down, play on the outside courts was washed out. But inside, with the roof shut over the centre court, things should have been okay. But with the Yarra bursting its banks, water started flowing back up the drains and onto the centre court. Perhaps they should have staged a concert starring Wet, Wet, Wet. Fortunately, it was bright and sunny on ladies' singles final day as Mary Pierce met Arantxa Sanchez Vicario. We joined the action in the first set. Sanchez is serving at 3-4 and love 15.
Monster hitting from Mary. So there's a real window now. 3-4, love 30. Really unusual error from Arantxa in the stop netting. To 3 break points for Mary Pierce. She's made precious few of mistakes like that. Still 2 break points. Definitely out. Mary thought she'd hit a winner. She needs to now. Break point number 3. Yes, the power's too strong. She's got the break.
With a crucial break achieved, Pierce closed out the set 6-3. We rejoin the match in the second set. It's 2-all, an advantage Sanchez.
Sanchez is giving it all. But at the moment, she can't cope with this power, combined with the accuracy that Pierce is showing.
Advantage Pierce.
That doesn't help. So Mary Pierce here with a break point. The French girl looking really good now. A set and 3-2 to the good. So it's match point Pierce. goes in spectacular fashion. Mary Pierce wins the Australian Open in devastating style.
With Rafter's career in decline, Mark Philippoussis had emerged as the bright Australian hope in 1996. In the third round, he took on Sampras under the lights at the now renamed Melbourne Park. We join the action in the second set tiebreak. Sampras leads 5-2.
So there's a blow for Philippoussis. 3-5. And another ace thunders down. Is an enormous forehand. So the second set now in danger. Sampras already a set down, 5-all.
6-5.
At least he's human. So set point for Pete Sampras. Oh, he can't miss with that forehand.
We leave the tiebreak at 6-all and rejoin the action at 9-all.
Thank you. Quiet, please.
No, just out it was. Set point to Philippoussis for a 2-sets-to-love lead.
Thank you. Quiet, please. Thank you. Thank you.
The third set also went to a tiebreak, which the Australian largely dominated.
Lovely pick-up on the half volley. But he's very nearly out.
Thank you.
It's still match point Philippoussis.
Thank you. Game.
A new star is born. A simply breathtaking performance of raw power from Mark Philippoussis. And Sampras, who hasn't played badly, has gone out. And the Australians celebrate a new hero.
Philippoussis would get no further though, and in the final Boris Becker closed in on his second Australian Open title at the expense of Michael Chang.
Game, set, match, Becker. 3 sets to 1. 6-2, 6-4, 2-6, 6-2.
Becker had fulfilled one of his wife Barbara's dreams, to see him win a Grand Slam title. The fact that his second triumph in Melbourne had come 5 years after his first made it feel even sweeter.
The 1996 men's singles champion, Boris Becker of Germany.
Players are ready.
The women's quarter-finals produced one of the greatest matches in the history of the Australian Open, as Arantxa Sanchez-Vicario took on the young American Chanda Rubin. We joined the match in the third set, Sanchez serving at 13-14 and 15-40.
She's still in it, and this extraordinary match continues. Match point number 2 for Chanda Rubin at 14-13 in this deciding set. It's long. No, it's not.
So Sanchez saved 2 match points. We pick up the action again at 14-15, with Sanchez in trouble at love 40.
Another match point for Rubin. So Sanchez-Vicario has now saved 3 match points. It's there, and Chandler Rubin has won one of the most extraordinary matches in the history of the Australian Open.
Germany's Anke Huber reached her first Grand Slam final against Monica Seles, who'd marked her return to Melbourne with a 3-set win over Rubin in the semis. It was much easier for Monica in the final. She won 6-4, 6-1 to make her record at the Australian Open a remarkable 28 wins from 28 matches. After all her problems, there was no more popular a champion. Another immensely popular player in Melbourne was Stefan Edberg. The singles champion of 1985 was making his last appearance at the Australian Open prior to retirement. Fittingly, he reached the doubles final in partnership with Peter Korda against the Canadian-American combination of Sébastien Leroux and Alex O'Brien. The match produced some classic rallies that even tested the cameramen. Here's O'Brien serving to Korda. Korda and the crowd were getting fired up, but Edberg remained typically cool as he and his partner completed a 4-sets win, and Stefan took the last major trophy of his glittering career. No rain to worry about in 1997, just heat. Burning, searing heat that soared into the 40s, making life almost unbearable for players and spectators. They could at least seek shade, use sunblock, drink a lot. Out on the courts, there was no respite. Steffi Graf was suffering in her 4th-round match with the South African Amanda Kurtzer. Feeling unwell before she played, Graf tried ice packs and isotonic drinks in a desperate effort to prevent dehydration. Kurtzer, who was far more used to such conditions, took full advantage to pull off a straight sets win. It was a huge upset, but by no means the only one, as controversy raged as to whether the roof should be closed in such weather. In the first round, an inspired Spaniard, Carlos Moya, had put out the defending champion, Boris Becker.
My brain is scrambled eggs right now. I'm really struggling to speak normally because I'm just burning, especially my feet and my legs are real hot, and you know there were times that I couldn't move at all because I was afraid I lose the skin on my feet.
5 matches later, Michael Chang was Moya's semi-final opponent. The Spaniard seemed unstoppable. Manuel Santana, a great Spanish champion from an earlier generation, celebrated as the unseeded Moya made it through to his first Grand Slam final. His toughest task was still to come, though, for now he faced an in-form Sampras. To be honest, the match was never a contest. Sampras conceded just 8 games. Like Sampras, the Woodies were seeking their second Australian Open title as a pair. Their opponents in a doubles final were the 1996 finalists, Leroux and O'Brien.
I didn't feel the extra pressure of playing in front of a hometown crowd. In fact, it sort of has the reverse effect for me. I'm quite relaxed, and it's just a special feeling of being in front of however many people are there watching you play. It's an advantage to have all those people cheering for you. it's like a Davis Cup match. It could be a 10%, 15% swing in your favour, and these days where it's a point or so that decides a match, that's a big swing.
And they needed a swing coming from the set down to win in 4 sets. A new name was about to be engraved on the women's singles trophy. At 16, Martina Hingis became the youngest ever Australian Open champion when she beat Mary Pierce 6-2, 6-2 in the women's final. At the start of a remarkable year, which would see her reach all 4 Grand Slam finals and win 3 of them, it was fitting that she should be joined on the court by her mother and coach, Melanie. Jonas Bjorkman seemed set to snuff out Peter Korda's lingering hopes of a Grand Slam singles title when he led the veteran Czech by 2 sets to love in the 1998 quarter-finals. Korda, the runner-up in the 1992 French Open, had other ideas.
The key match was beating Bjorkman. 2 sets to love down, it always gives you confidence. It lifts your confidence, and it really did lift my confidence. The final day, before I even played that match, it was probably the worst 72 hours in my life, because really to get, I don't want to say motivated, but I couldn't eat, I couldn't accept it. I was so nervous. I felt maybe my last chance. The time I walked through the tunnel, I don't know how many meters is it? Is it 60, 50, 100? I felt my legs were heavy, I really couldn't move them, I just remember I could go left, right, left, like in the army. But the time, I came to court and I hit the first ball, I felt, suddenly my body is losing out.
Indeed, once the final got underway, there was a man at the other end, 22-year-old Marcelo Rios from Chile, who froze. Korda, one of the most gifted shot makers in the game, produced his wide variety of strokes. Rios, in contrast, struggled for form and was frequently left stranded as another winner flashed past him. This was giving a whole new meaning to the turning defence into attack. Two sets to love in front, Peter and his wife Regina knew that the major title that had eluded him for so long was now in his grasp. At the age of 30, Peter had at last fulfilled his huge talent. No wonder he sank to his knees to offer a prayer of thanks.
6-2, 6-2.
It's hard to explain in the words. If you're gonna put one word, it's fantastic. It's obviously I won. It's always when you win something, especially like big. It's gonna be great. And on my body was like, so pumping. I felt, I could fly that moment. That cartwheel. I don't know why I did it. My family and myself, we're never gonna forget the moment right after, I beat Marcela. We could share together, and to have my daughter around, because that was a very special moment. She came for the last game. They brought her for the last game. It meant a lot to me, because the family was always really on my side when I was really down on the river, and that helped me, to make the jump from the bottom, and to share that moment with them and with my coach Thomas, was a fantastic moment.
16-year-old Anna Kournikova from Russia posed a real threat to the now 17-year-old Martina Hingis in the third round of the women's singles. The two teenagers produced some amazing all-court rallies, with Kournikova matching the defending champion throughout the first two sets. In the third, though, Kournikova's tendency to make unforced errors proved expensive. Hingis had a vital break and would serve for the match. Hingis was through, but Kournikova had given notice of her blossoming skills. The 1994 Wimbledon champion Conchita Martinez reached the Australian Open final for the first time to face Hingis, who was quickly into her most devastating form. Some have criticised the Swiss miss for a comparative lack of mobility. You wouldn't think so from looking at this again. Martinez tried to change the pattern of the match by coming to the net. Hingis still had the answers. Hingis was simply in a different class and moved relentlessly toward a second successive title. The youngest ever Australian Open champion had become the youngest ever player to retain an Australian Open title. She would also retain the women's doubles crown, and although January was to prove to be the high watermark of Martina's Grand Slam year, few doubt that she'll be lifting many more trophies at Melbourne Park over the rest of her career. After all, at 18, she's hardly passed it just yet.